Hello and welcome to our project update. We hope everyone is staying safe and remaining healthy. In today's session, we'll be running through an update of the new datasets, dimensions, hierarchies, and measures available through our free Cloud Olap Insights project, which is geared to help the community understand where we are on our path back to normal. My name is Court Johnson. I'm VP of Growth at AtScale. I'm here with my colleague Daniel Gray, VP of Sales Engineering. For those new to AtScale, the Global 2000 uses our Cloud Olap platform to make their data analysis ready by anyone across the enterprise. Today, we will give those new to AtScale, to the AtScale Insights project, a high-level overview of the Cloud Olap platform. Specifically, you'll see how Cloud Olap enables performant ad hoc what-if analysis capabilities across your BI tools without the time-consuming data engineering work needed to deliver analytics through cloud data marts. Additional data sets available to slice and dice, and those will include COVID-19 data sets, economic and mobility data sets, new dimensions and hierarchies within the models, and then how you can connect Tableau, Excel, Power BI, and Looker to generate your own insights. Our objective through this project is to unleash the community on analysis-ready data to better understand where we are on the path back to normal. For those that do generate interesting insights, please reach out to us as we'd love to highlight the work that you're doing. We'll provide an email address you can reach out to in our follow-up email to this webinar. If you have specific questions, please feel free to ask. We'll save some time at the end of the session for Q&A. If we don't have a chance to answer them in this session, feel free to reach out individually and we'll follow up with you directly. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Daniel.
Thanks, Court. All right, so thanks for joining us again this morning. As Court mentioned, we're here to really talk about the updates to the model that we've published. The model has been consolidated down to a single model with all the data assets. The name of the model is the AtScale back to normal model. And so just to hit a couple slides here and talk a little bit about the advantages of AtScale and how AtScale helps people consume these data assets very easily without doing any type of data engineering or writing any complex SQL. If you think about traditional Olap and traditional cubes, there's a lot of negative, connotation that comes with using traditional cubes, and that's around pre-aggregation, moving data. There's not a lot of flexibility because when you make a change, you have to rebuild everything. And then you're also pre-aggregating data, so you're not necessarily being very prescriptive, predictive about the different paths that people can be taking during slicing and dicing of the data. What AtScale does is it brings Olap to the cloud without the negative connotation of traditional cubes. And so with AtScale, we're virtual in nature. So we don't pre-aggregate data. We're not moving any data off your cloud platforms. We're going to take advantage of the compute elasticity that you have in the cloud that you've already invested in. And we're going to provide the ability to plug in multidimensional use cases directly into your cloud data warehouses. So that means being able to connect Excel, Power BI, Tableau, Looker, tools like that directly into your platform with no extracts required. And then AtScale will do all the hard work of one, making the data accessible through a multidimensional interface. So that's like measures, dimensions, and hierarchies. And we will also eliminate the data engineering required to get the optimal performance in your cloud data warehouses, at the same time reducing costs by reducing compute and I/O. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the data sets. So if you joined us in the past, we started modeling the COVID data sets. Not too long ago, we published a few models around the COVID data sets, and those models have worked great. But over time, that data, which is out there everywhere, you can basically Google for it, and you'll find very similar stats all over the place. Over time, what we've decided to do is, let's bring more and more data assets together that we can join with the COVID data set. So this means that it's not so much anymore about, what are the statistics, what are the number of cases, and so on and so forth. It's really about, what is going to be the new normal, and when are we going to get to that new normal? And you can do that through analysis of starting to combine economic data, combine different data sets that are out there in the market, public and private, to start to make some decisions about, getting back to normal. So who's going out to eat? What are the different mobility data sets that are out there so you can see different movements within residential communities, within retail, and so on and so forth. By making all these data assets available, you can start to do a lot of cross analysis and derive a lot of insights. The interesting thing about this is that if you just take these data sets today and you just try to throw them all into a database or into some store somewhere and just do high level analysis on them, you're going to do a lot of data engineering. So as you bring more and more data sets together, the more likely something's not necessarily going to be relatable. And so you're going to be writing SQL analytic functions to make sure that you're grabbing the last record when it comes to cumulative records. You're going to be trying to figure out if I do a left join or a right join, if I have an unrelated dimension. With AtScale, we eliminate all those barriers. When you log in, you simply see your measures, your dimensions, and your hierarchies across all these different data sets, and you're able to go do analysis. And so as you can see here, we have a bunch of different COVID data sets that are available. We've also added mobility data sets around Google, and around Apple. We also have some of the TSA information in there. And we started to add quite a bit of economic data also. So the Department of Transportation, the Bureau of Labor, and open table data sets. And we'll continuously add more data sets. And what that essentially means to anybody consuming this model is that when you log in, you refresh your data source, you're just going to continuously see new dimensions and hierarchies that you can go do analysis on. So with that, I should also mention that, we do have a site or a page on our site, AtScale Insights Marketplace. So this is going to be an area where you can come to actually start to consume and request access to these models. And so you see the URL below. Take a look. Let us know if you have any questions. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly jump in and just we'll run through the model real quick, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So let's jump over here. Okay. All right. So some of you may recognize some of the data assets in this model. If you look over here on the right-hand side, these are the data assets that we've had for quite some time. So the WHO situation reports, Johns Hopkins data, there's an Italian data set, German data set, there's some Kaiser healthcare information, along with New York Times. Those data sets, what we've done is we've actually brought them together in a single model. So you can actually do cross-correlation of those data sets to actually determine who's, kind of see some patterns in how people are actually, providing those data assets. But what gets really interesting is when you can start to combine those data assets with things like open table, with the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Apple mobility data, Google mobility data, TSA transportation data. Once you start doing this, then you can start to do a lot of cross-correlation of, mobility type of trends. You can start to understand, who's starting to spend money. One interesting statistic I saw the other day as I was looking through the data is you can start to understand who's investing more in cloud compute. So you can start to get a sense on, hey, maybe, folks are starting to get back to normal, but, based on this trend, they're not necessarily going to be going back to work anytime soon. And you can start to do a lot of that different analysis based on economic indicators that are here in the data, and we'll continue to add to it. What this looks like to the end consumer, as you log in, you simply use the tool of your choice. And if you look over here on your left-hand side, this is Tableau, of course. You see that entire semantic model that I just showed you in AtScale. So you never need to go into data source down here. You never need to do any type of data engineering or writing any SQL. You actually just go right in and you can start using the measures and dimensions and dragging and dropping. And again, if the COVID data sets have been around a while, and if you go out there and take a look, everybody, has a different dashboard now. So there's a ton of different dashboards. What gets really interesting is when you can start doing time relative type of analysis, you can start looking at mobility data sets, and you can do that cross correlation to understand, how this is impacting your business. And, in addition, if you have, one of the great things about AtScale is universal in nature. And so when we're defining things like, for example, the definition of COVID-like illness, we're defining this in one place in our semantic model, and then you're reusing that definition in the different tools versus everybody redefining it, and chances are someone getting it wrong. So, for example, if I log into Power BI here, I see the same exact semantic model over here on my right-hand side. So again, I don't need to define anything. I don't need to do any data engineering. I can just start using these different measures and dimensions and start doing analysis. And if you're an Excel user, again, same thing. You log in, simple MDX string. You don't need to install anything in Excel. Same thing with Power BI. It's just a connector. And again, you see the entire semantic model over here on your right-hand side. So you can start to do development of insights in whatever tool that you feel most comfortable with. So the last thing I'd say is that as you're doing your analysis here, you'll notice, even though we're going across many different tables and there's a lot of different, data assets in here, you'll notice that you should be constantly getting good performance. And the reason for that is AtScale is basically intercepting all these queries that are coming in, looking at the patterns of the queries, and automating the data engineering on the back-end platform to ensure that as people use the model, as they're doing insights, they're able to do quick drill down analysis based on the data engineering that we're doing on the back-end system. All right, so that was just a quick update on the data sets that are out there. We'd love to get your feedback. And if you want access to the environment, I can bring up or to any of the models. I'll bring back up the slides here. You can request access. And if you have any questions, we can certainly run through those questions. So I'll just leave up this.
Hey, Daniel, a couple questions.
Yep.
So if somebody wants to request a data set to have included in the model, how long would it take to add that data set?
Typically not that long. That's where our area of expertise is around the data and the data engineering and the data modeling. So what we've done is in the model, we spent quite a bit of time trying to understand the commonality across the different data sets. And we built very clean kind of base dimensionality. And what I mean by that is geo type of dimensions and time dimensions. And as you look across the different data assets that are out there, there's usually commonality across there. So Court, to answer your question, typically it's just a matter of us looking at that data asset, quickly adding it to the model, then we republish, and then it's available immediately. And then the autonomous data engineering we have will take care of all the data engineering to make sure it's performant. So we can usually do something within hours, depending on the data set.
Great. And one other question is, I think a lot of analysts have PTSD around trying to add additional dimensions or measures or even rebuilding hierarchies within their data just from the amount of time that it takes or even the interaction that they would have to go through with somebody in IT or the data team. What's the process of somebody here who's analyzing the data wants to add one of those things? How is that process different using AtScale versus the traditional method?
Yeah, it's a great question, Court. One thing is asking for access to the data, and the other thing is making that data consumable. So there's a lot of different ways to add data sets. If it's a small data set that you just want to pull in, you can actually pull those data assets into your BI tool right here that's connected to AtScale and do a correlation there. So that's the first path. The second path is what we talked about earlier. If we understand what that data set is, we can probably add it very quickly. But the other side of the equation is really, what happens when you get that data? So I'll give you an example. If you take a look at like the Johns Hopkins data sets or the COVID data sets, they're cumulative in nature. What that means is that the last record for a particular day for a particular region is the case count. So if you just go out and say, I'm going to sum up every single case count for the state of California, you're going to get back the wrong value. So you actually have to go write a last value analytic function with partitioning clause and order by, which it's not rocket science, but it's work. And you got to make sure you get it right. When you add those data sets in something like an AtScale, then when you log into your BI tool, you simply see that data asset as a hierarchy dimension, versus having to go out and write that SQL.
Yeah, that's great. I just know, having talked to a lot of folks who are using the model, like that's a question that we commonly get. So thanks for answering. So with that, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us. Again, we're eager to hear more about the insights that you're able to derive from the AtScale Insights project. So if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Our team is happy to support you. The email alias you can reach us at is covid19@atscale.com. So thanks again, and looking forward to catching up again soon.
Thanks, everybody.